You can keep that there just for...
Oh, that's good. All right, hello. I am here with Jerri Elliott, aka Ginger Turtle, for all of you in the derby world. Today we're talking about mental health and relationships with food, whether that be a food disorder. I say that right? Food disorder. Okay.
Eating disorder.
Eating disorder. Okay, I was like, that doesn't sound right. And she's also here to correct me. So eating disorders, and just kind of educating us on things I didn't even know we just talked about before going live. So I'm going to hand it over to Jerri to kind of share her experience and talk about her struggle with food in general and what that was like for you.
Yeah. I kind of always grew up feeling like a little weird in terms of depression and anxiety. Mm-hmm. I've always kind of had some mild form of it, but it didn't come into fruition until probably around like 2012, like right before I moved to Texas. And basically I was having a really hard time at college. I've actually failed out of college twice. Most people don't know that. And so the first time I failed out, I actually was kind of going into, I was just slumping down pretty severely. And so I went to the psychiatrist on campus and was kind of like, I don't know what's going on. Mm-hmm. They ended up prescribing me to an antidepressant, and it took a very, very severe turn. I had a very adverse reaction to it. Mm-hmm. And to the point to where I was basically... right outside my dorm room, there was actually a balcony, and it was almost to the point of like, I don't want to be here anymore. Yeah. I don't want to do this. Like,
and it's so unfortunate because I've heard that from a lot of people, and I've experienced it too. It's like you're going in and getting help,
and it just makes it almost worse.
Yes, which is so hard because it's such a trial and error thing. But it's like the worst thing to be trial and error.
Yeah,
because sometimes you don't get another chance to see if another.
Right.
And I understand, just to kind of sidebar, like that is a lot of. I think that's huge with people not going and getting on meds because of that fear, which is legit.
Yeah.
So
and it's totally understandable, and it kind of sucked because the 2 months before that I was on an antidepressant, mm-hmm. and it was working.
Yeah.
And then it kind of started not working, so they're like, well, let's try another one, and then I had this like insane reaction to it, and that kind of just stopped me completely. I was like, I don't want to be on this anymore. Like, I need to figure something else out. Mm-hmm. And so I actually ended up stopping completely cold turkey, which is one of the
not recommended.
One of the worst ideas you could ever have, getting off of antidepressants.
Yeah.
And that summer, I basically, it was the summer before I moved to Texas, and I spent the entirety of my day on the couch, and I stopped eating. I stopped drinking water. I stopped doing pretty much everything. And, when I say stopped eating, I mean legitimately. Yeah. I stopped eating. I would go days without eating a thing, like any food, until I felt sick, and then I would eat something.
Yeah.
So basically got to the point to where one night I went, I was at my parents' house. I knocked on my dad's door, and I was like, hey, I need to go to the doctor. Like, mm-hmm. I need to go to the hospital right now. I honestly feel like I'm about to die.
Yeah.
Like, I feel really bad. And my dad was like, okay, well, before we do that, let's just, get some food in you, see what happens. And he was brilliant. The next day he went out and bought me protein shakes and all this stuff, and was like, all right, like we need to do something about this. And we scheduled an appointment with, my doctor, and my doctor was like, well, you do have, like you're suffering from depression and anxiety, but there's nothing that I can do about your eating issue, because your weight and BMI does not match something that we consider severe enough to be an eating disorder. And at that time I weighed 98 pounds. Mm-hmm. 98 pounds. I'm 5'2". I weighed 98 pounds. And
so what's the norm for you, just to kind of put in perspective how light that was for you?
Oh God, when I was at my fittest, mm-hmm. I was sitting around 120.
Okay.
So in a matter of 2 months, I dropped 22 pounds. You could, there's huge gap between my legs. You could see every single one of my ribs. It was, it was not healthy. It was pretty severe. And then, I was kind of just stuck in this category of, well, there's something wrong. There's something obviously wrong.
Right.
Like, psychology-wise, there is something wrong. And my doctor didn't want to prescribe me with anything because it wasn't severe enough for anything. So basically, I ended up doing some Google research, obviously Google, and
or Wikipedia. I hear that's also very reliable.
But I ended up finding kind of this group of people that were kind of in a similar situation. Mm-hmm. And finally, someone came back and was like, guys, my doctor just brought this up to me. It's called OSFED, and it's other specified feeding or eating disorder, which is basically the I'm not sick enough order. Because
it's not like on what, so severe would be like, you were saying anorexia, bulimia, and then you have like this, I'm not sick enough to be in that category, but there is an issue.
Right.
But the doctors are like, meh.
Yeah, pretty much. It's
so
like, well, it's nothing we can do.
Just because there's not a label for it.
Yeah, there's not a label for it. There's no direction you can really go with it other than, well, obviously you just need to change, like, you just need to make sure that you're eating more calories.
Because so you were saying before you were limiting, like, your calorie intake.
Right.
So, like, how many calories a day were you getting?
Probably 300-400.
Which, as you know, on the back of like nutritional stuff, like a 2,000 calorie diet is the norm.
Yeah.
So I mean that's really extreme.
Yeah.
So was it because you just didn't have an appetite? Like why? What was the why behind only only intaking that much?
It was pretty much anxiety. So I would eat food and then I would get anxious about it. I would get anxious about, I just developed this very poor sense of self, this poor self-awareness. It was just looking in the mirror and going, like, I'm not worthy enough.
Yeah.
I'm not.
You didn't have a good relationship with looking in the mirror, which a lot, I think everyone can relate to that in some way. If you've looked in the mirror and, I just recently went through that, so I get that.
Yeah.
And so I can understand how that could happen. Like, okay, I'm only going to eat this much just because it's like you're almost scared to eat more.
Yeah.
Because then you don't want to not like yourself even more.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just, I would, just see myself and I'd be like, you're too fat in that area. Like, don't eat today. And that was, I mean, it's so hard to describe it. Just at that time it made sense to me. Yeah. Now I look back and I'm like, why would you ever think that? So when you were Googling it and you found what it had a label, what it was called, what steps did you take to kind of get better? Well, I actually went back to my doctor. Mm-hmm. I went back to my doctor and I was like, so this is what I found. Let me educate you. I was like, and I hate to be one of those people where it's like, well, Google said. And, I just I put it in front of her and I said, like, do you know anything about this? And she was like, oh, I didn't actually think about that. And did you want to punch her in the face? I kind of wanted to punch her in the face, and I was like, there's been something that you could have given me. This is why people resort to the internet for diagnosis. Right, and honestly, like, when I ended up moving to Texas, I ended up getting a second opinion. Yeah. And without even having to bring it up, they were like, all right, like, yes, you are not severe enough to have any form of, like, anorexia or anything like that. Like, you don't have the neuroticism or the impulsivity or anything like that comes along with it. But there's this other category. And you have a disorder, and it's an issue, and we're going to fix it. And so it was really nice, like, actually moving here and realizing, like, like, finally, like, someone actually wants to, like put an answer and an end to this.
And I think that's really great that you kept fighting for an answer, because a lot of what happens is you go to the doctor and they say, you know what, there's nothing wrong with you. There's no issue. Like, I can't diagnose you.
Yeah.
And so people are okay with that. And then you just kind of are still living in this misery where it's like, take the time out of your day to go get a second opinion.
Correct.
And because it could be a life or death situation. It could be, I mean, it was your health on the line, and not only physical but mental too.
Right.
So I think that's huge, and that's really awesome that you kept pushing for that, because you knew in the back of your mind that something needed to
something's
change.
wrong. Something's wrong. And it was just. And, it sucked because at the same time I had the background noise of, well, you're just not sick enough. It doesn't matter to anyone. You're just not sick enough. Like, figure it out yourself. Do whatever. Yeah. So, yeah.
So what did that doctor do, like, in order to kind of get you back on track with, like, the correct amount of calories?
Right.
And not getting rid of the anxiety, but controlling that anxiety that came with it. Right.
So, basically, it came down to me... going and seeing a psychiatrist. There wasn't anyone in my immediate group that I knew could help me. And so I knew that I had to find some form of professional help to kind of just help
manage
with it. Yeah, and I was going to UNT at the time, so they actually have a really good counseling system where you can go in and actually, you can either go with people that are getting their PhDs, and it's $5 a session.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so...
That's good to know for people that are near Denton.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, and you can go in and you can actually... I think, it's a different rate for, like, student and non-student. But, yeah, it was $5 a session for me. And, I kept with the same counselor and everything. And it basically goes towards their certification hours and stuff like that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
How smart.
Yeah, right.
I'm sure other universities have something like that. So if you are not in the DFW Metroplex and you're looking for, I know a lot of people say, like, it's so hard to find mental health help, like when you're a psychiatrist, psychologist, because it's so expensive, and a lot of insurance doesn't cover it.
Yep.
Which is stupid in another topic. But
That's
so check out your local university and see if that's something that they offer. I mean, it's like going and getting your hair cut.
Yeah.
With a cosmetology student. But also different.
Yeah. So yeah, it was kind of just working through like the different stages of the recovery of it. There's, in my notes. So yeah, it's basically at that point I was at the preparation phase, which is basically like, I'm ready to change. Like, I need to change.
Like acceptance.
Yeah. Like acceptance. Like, this is something that needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was just a matter of going through, and there was a lot of practice of kind of like self-acceptance and, like not only feeding your body, but feeding your soul. So really kind of digging in and, reading those self-improvement books. As much as people sometimes think they're silly, they are probably one of the most beneficial things I've ever like done. And to this day, like, I'm still doing it. I'm still reading these books.
It helps to hear someone's story because you can relate to it, and it makes you feel not alone.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like doing these Facebook Lives, like what I have found, like I selfishly started this because I needed it for myself and I needed to talk about it because it made me feel better. But then it opened up this door to people that are like, yeah, me too, or yeah, like, hey, I have a mental health struggle I want to talk to you about, and let's talk about it. And so it is awesome, like self-help, like podcasts, books, like they're out there. And I think it's like, if you read it and you don't like it, I mean, what's the worst that it could have done?
Right, you got a sentence out of it. So yeah, and it's just, a matter of finding your support team, finding people that are professionally going to help you, and then also finding kind of like your squad. Yeah. So like, squad goals. So like being able to actually express it to people, say like, hey guys, I'm going through this issue, can I rely on you to like be there for me if I'm going through a rough moment? Can I call you? Mm-hmm. So, it's finding that, and then being honest, finding a coping mechanism, just being able to actually go through all these things and be a reminder that oh yeah, like I need to eat, I need to do this. And it was really a matter of, you know, obviously I didn't go from consuming this tiny chunk of calories to like just binge eating, because, you know, it's not healthy that way. So it was a matter of also just slowly increasing that calorie intake step by step. And yeah, it took about 2015. It was right when I was joining Derby. Is like right when I was actually like good.
Or, yeah,
I was good. I mean, obviously, you know, to this day, there's days where I forget to eat, and I actually, like, Brooklyn has to remind me, did you eat today? Have you done these things today?
That happens to a lot of people. Especially if you have a really busy job.
Yeah. And, you know, majority of the time, it's not ever because
you're doing it on purpose.
I'm busy or anything like that, and it's never on purpose. It's just that habit now of just, it's not a worry. Like, that's not something I need to be doing. That's not something I need to be doing.
Right.
But I do.
Well, and I wonder if it's something where you kind of block it out, not intentionally, but it's just kind of because it was an issue and it was something you did not have a good relationship with. So I wonder if kind of subconsciously.
Yeah, and it's really interesting being in kind of like, you know, deep into the recovered phase of it. Because, you know, I am recovered. I've gained my weight back. I'm very adamant about it. I'm working with a nutritionist right now to like,
oh, that's awesome.
It's, you know, been keeping me on track and everything like that. So it's interesting, honestly, being at this, and especially like looking back, and it's a lot easier for me to, one, talk about it, share it, but also I kind of look at myself and I just go, how did you ever let yourself get to that point? And honestly, I think that's the most heartbreaking part about everything. It's just kind of like, how did I let myself get so negative and down about myself and hate myself to the point to where I was almost willing to starve myself to death.
And that's also something that's really hard because it's not you. You know, and that's kind of where the mental health comes in. It's like, it's something that, whatever you believe, like, it's just kind of taking over. And that's why, you know, people that don't want to be on meds, and, you know, we had this conversation before, that sometimes you just have to, because your brain can do tricky things and make you think like, oh, I hate myself. You know what? I'm just not going to eat, and I'm going to die a slow and painful death, you know? And so, whereas other people, it's like this. They're like, oh yeah, I need to end it. And then it's just boom, before they can even think. Yeah. So it's like, there's different stages and everyone has a different situation. Yeah. But I think that's really awesome that you're able to talk about it. I congratulate you on pushing through it and fighting to, because you knew in the back of your mind that you wanted to be here and you wanted to be better. So I think that if you are struggling with food, you know, whether it be under eating or overeating, or maybe you didn't realize that it is a disorder, kind of like, I mean, it seems like the doctor in Virginia or wherever didn't know. So if it's something that you kind of in the back of your mind are like, hey, this is an issue. Like, I'm not getting enough calories. You know, find a group. I mean, I know like group therapy isn't for everyone, but it could help. Or, you know, go see your doctor, talk about it. If you need to, if you want to pick Jerri's brain, I'm sure she is super open about you messaging her. So feel free to do that. And is there anything else like that you want to put out there?
I think one of the biggest things for me is, so majority of the time whenever anyone kind of like learns this part of my life or hears my story or anything like that, they're kind of like, wow, I never would have thought of that. And it's sort of like, well, first off, how dare you assume that any form of mental disorder or disorder in general has a stereotype? No, you're absolutely right. And I think that that's super important to say, because I just had this conversation with someone about someone saying, man, I never would have thought. It's like when you hear of a friend or whoever commit suicide, it's like, oh, I thought they were so happy. I never would have thought. It's like when you have
mental health struggles, you're the best at covering it up. It's not like you walk around all day and mope. I mean, you go out there and you just do your thing, and you, I mean, and then
you come home and you undress it all.
Yeah.
And it's there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so, yes, don't assume, you know, like, I think that's, I'm so glad you said that, because it happens all the time.
Yeah, and it's, you know, and it's frustrating because, you know, I mean, we were talking about it before this, how, oh, well, I never would have guessed that, like, you're, like, I never would have guessed that's your weight, or I never would have guessed this, I never would have, you know, like, I never would have guessed that you were ever unhealthy, or that you were having this issue ever in your life. And it's just kind of, well, yeah, but am I not allowed to?
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of just like, it's almost like you have to ask permission from the world.
Yeah.
To have it. And it's one of those, like, a disorder or a mental health issue doesn't have a stereotype. And it's a reminder that you don't have to just check on the people that you know are struggling. You have to also check on your strong friends.
Yeah.
Because sometimes
it can be anyone.
It could be anyone. And sometimes the strongest people you know are sometimes the ones struggling the most. Yeah,
but because they are so strong, they're able to just kind of fight through it and just live their life. Yeah. So I've 100%. Yeah.
Always been at that point where, like, I'm just, well, keep trucking. Just push through it, and smile, and keep pushing, and smile. And so
it's kind of like when you're walking down the street and someone's like, smile. Don't you hate that? You know, you'd look so pretty if you'd smile. Just kidding. All right, so on that note,
please
don't say that.
I'm embarrassed by you now.
Thank you guys for watching, and until next time, peace out.